All right, good morning, everybody who's joining us already. We just allow for a few minutes for people to come into the room. So welcome, please make yourselves at home. If you can look in the chat and introduce yourselves, let us know who you are, where you're from. I'm in sunny Johannesburg, enjoying the weather. Jabu, I think, is with me in Johannesburg. Am I right, Jabu? And we have Josh May, who's in London.
Hi, good morning.
Probably not enjoying the weather as much as we are.
You guessed it.
Thanks everybody who's joining us. It's good to have you here. We'll just give it a few more minutes to let the numbers get up, and then we'll launch into the official introductions. For anyone who's just joined us, please let us know in the chat who you are and where you're from. It'll be good to hear who's in the audience today. I'm going to stop sharing the slide now. See how it's going in the chat. If you have on your drop-down menu, you can see that there's the possibility of addressing the hosts and panelists or everyone. Please toggle down to everyone so that we can all interact with your chat, so that it's not just addressed to us. I can see we've got a few people joining us. Let's give it a little bit more time so that we can fill up the room and you can all be here for our message. I see Mike Hibbert from BlackLine has joined us. Good to have you here. Hi, Karen. Also good to have you here with us. Please let us know a little bit more about who you are and where you're from in the chat. It would be good to hear from all of you. All right, I think I am going to start with the official program today. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Accounting in a Never Normal World. I'm Georgina Gidders, the Editor-in-Chief of CFO South Africa, and we're going to tackle a topic that's close to every finance professional's heart. I'll get to the introductions in a minute. We keep hearing about the new normal, or we're thinking about when things get back to normal, but the reality is we are in a never normal world. COVID-19 may have really shaken things up, but this was already true. Never normal was already true in 2019 and will continue to be true in 2022 and beyond. And of course, accounting reflects that. Shifting business models require accounting to behave differently, phasing out mundane workloads for a more strategic focus. Accountants would love to take a more proactive approach, but they are bogged down with the reactive and transactional nature of their work. But the solutions exist to free accountants from this trap. Josh May, the principal consultant at BlackLine, is here to unpack the challenges and their solutions for us. And then we'll hear about it all in practice from Jabu Vitshima, Senior Specialist in Finance Business Automation at MultiChoice, will tell us about her accounting nightmare and how they've improved their situation. Josh, I'd like to hand over to you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And I and Jabu will pop off the camera so that Josh can take center stage.
Thank you very much indeed, and good morning. Very nice to meet you. My name is Josh May, and I'm joining you as introduced from BlackLine, from working from home, as many of us will be, from my home in West London. I'm a principal solutions consultant. What that means is that I'm a technical lead, and I work with people who are looking to automate their processes, trying to really align what needs to be done and automate out the boring, repetitive work, which is the burden of finance departments around the world. So really what we aim to do is to automate anything that's boring, and then we can go ahead and do many, many more useful strategic things instead. So
Josh, sorry, I completely forgot about our poll. So I'm interrupting you for a second just to launch it. So this is your process automation journey. We'd just like to know from you in the audience where you are in that. I'm just going to leave it up. You can, Josh, you can carry on. They can do this in the background and in poll when they're.
Multitask. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to very briefly introduce myself, I am an accountant for well, over 21 years of actually working in financial reporting. I've worked in investment banking, worked in property development. Most recently, I ran a finance team that did all of the financial reporting for the internal and external reporting for a company based in the UK that runs the UK and Irish lotteries, a company called Camelot. I implemented BlackLine there, so went through the process of deciding which was the best automation platform for that. Implemented it within 3 months, and we managed to get 80% automation around how we dealt with the higher volume of transactions, how we dealt with our balance sheet reconciliations, and how we aligned journal entry into our 4 ERP platforms. This is a story we hear time and time again, that people are able to actually automate things more effectively so that they know that the inputs into those reporting platforms are 100% accurate each time, every time. It's quicker, it's more effective, it's applying the rules at source. And of course, if you audit your journal entries at that base level, then that has a positive impact on the matching of your data sources and ultimately on your reconciliation. So really, by getting it right at that entry point, we find that further down the road, then there are considerable benefits to be had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share very briefly with you just a couple of kind of ideas of how to handle this never normal world. What I'd like to do is just to kind of really set the scene as to why we're doing what we're doing. This is something which really can have so many benefits for not just people in the finance department, but beyond that as well, for all of the key stakeholders that get involved in the finance process. So if we really want to understand why automation can deliver benefits, what it's going to do is ultimately mean that you're more strategically aligned, which is a great phrase. And in essence, it just means that the strategic direction the company's taken from senior management actually is being delivered by those in the finance department, because people in finance have so much to deal with at the moment already. They're looking to really optimize their business processes. We can see down here in the bottom right-hand side, they're wanting to be more efficient in the way that they carry out their day-to-day work. And alongside that, they're also wanting to more effectively manage the risk and ensuring that we are compliant with all of the rules and regulations, which can be quite burdensome and actually quite time-consuming at the same time. Really, the poor relation in this process is making sure that you are aligned to that corporate strategy. And as a result, when you're juggling so many balls in the air at the same time, it can often be that the alignment with the corporate strategy is the ball that gets dropped in that process. So what we say is, by automating the business processes, ensuring that you are managing your risk more effectively and automatically compliant with all the rules and regulations, you've therefore got more time for your corporate strategy. What we're doing here is, by automating the boring, repetitive stuff, you're expanding the capacity and therefore enabling people to do more corporate strategic work. This is why we qualified as accountants. I don't know about all of you, but I didn't qualify as an accountant back in 19 something to spend my life doing balance sheet reconciliations, to do the same thing month on month on month. Hence why we really need to expand capacity. Don't look at reducing capacity to focus on your corporate strategy. Why not enhance what you've got? Take the people who are doing the work day on day and give them something a bit more strategic focused. It's more exciting. It keeps people happy and ultimately keeps teams happy. So really, what are those leadership priorities that people have? You may all be able to see some items up here which you recognize as being the leadership priorities in your firms. We've highlighted the ones in red here, which tend to be the ones we see most often. We've got around 300,000 customers globally. What this does mean is that we've seen recurring themes, patterns in those priorities. So maybe at some points we can capture what those priorities are going to be. Make sure that you are strategically focusing on those items with the capacity freed up by automation within BlackLine. Now, I know we're going to be doing a poll. Is this the right time to be doing it? I'm asking Georgina in the background.
I had planned it for after, but I can absolutely pop it up now.
This might be as good a time as any, I reckon.
Okay.
As we've got those priorities on the screen.
Ties in. So here we go. Please let us know what your F&A priorities are in line with the poll on your screen.
What we do enjoy doing is actually having discussions up front before we've even, spoken about, what's specifically going to be automated for you, is to understand from you what those priorities are going to be. And then with our knowledge of the platform, with your knowledge of your business, we can marry those two together and just make sure that this automation is actually as value delivering as it possibly can be. So that's really the approach that we take. What we're doing in essence is we're just trying to minimize this on the screen. There we go. We're just trying to make sense of the chaos, because accounting can be quite chaotic. We can see up here some of the challenges that your average finance team face when it comes to the people involved in the process. The key stakeholders involved in any finance process are much broader than you think. We often think about, oh, it's just financial reporting, but then you've got people dealing with APAR, you've got financial performance and analysis, you've got people in tax, you've got auditors, people who sign off the numbers, you've got key stakeholders such as equity, the people who own the company, your customers, etc. So keeping them in the loop, capturing those conversations using technology is actually going to mean that their input into the process allows you to substantiate the figures, to actually prove that the figures that you're reporting are accurate. So of course, technology is a great enabler for making processes more efficient, allocating out workflow, getting teams of people to work more effectively together. But if you're trying to do that with tools like Outlook, with Excel, with Word, it's not meant for that. You can try and kind of configure it to do that, but it's only ever going to have very limited success, and you're going to spend a lot of your life actually doing that configuring. All of this, as we mentioned earlier on, when we're talking about regulations, we're talking about compliance, it's only going to go in one direction. Compliance and adherence to regulations is only going to get more and more severe in the future and take up more of our time. So, really, there are platforms out there that can help with that, to automate that, to capture the communication from the people in that process and use it to explain the numbers that you're actually reporting. So really, this is why it's chaotic. And if you haven't got a stable platform in place to do all of this for you, to capture that, then really you're unnecessarily doubling up the work, if not more. So what we want to do really is to kind of make sense of the chaos, is to understand what work you're actually doing when you're looking to close off your books. What supporting evidence do you have and where do you keep it? And what workflow do these steps actually need to go through? When you're reviewing those close activities, how do you do that? Again, is it Excel based? Not exactly ideal for that. There's limited visibility, poor sharing capability, etc. And how does that impact the trial balance that you're actually producing? When you've produced your trial balance, how do you actually justify the numbers that are produced? And when you're making the adjustments, how is that run through into the figures and updated? And do you need to redo reports and reconciliations, etc., etc.? And how do you ultimately tie that out? There are so many manual steps in this process that really it's not a great surprise that when we analyze this for our customers, we identify that actually there are a lot of people working in individual silos. There are a lot of bottlenecks in this process. So during the early stages of interaction with BlackLine, we'll go through a process of identifying what is working, what isn't working, discussing with you what can be automated and therefore be made more efficient. And we'll have conversations with you based on experience with other customers as to what they put that time that's saved by automation, what purpose did they put it towards? So we'll be looking to address those leadership priorities and address the chaos that we've discussed, and really helping identify where those bottlenecks are. So those bottlenecks take time. Whether you think it's 5 minutes to create an adjusting journal, or whether you think it's more like an hour, it can take time to identify it, to create it, to get it signed off, to file it away, to review the accounts again, to rerun the rec in the account that you've posted into. This is all time-consuming stuff. So getting it right first time, it's going to free you up to be more strategic in your thinking. And I've already been quite rude about Excel spreadsheets. Why not continue along that theme? I used to be, somebody once rather rudely referred to me as a spreadsheet jockey. Used to spend a lot of my time staring at Excel spreadsheets. I can't say I miss those days, but really if you're spending a good proportion of your time working in Excel spreadsheets, you'll be well aware of these problems, that the formulae within Excel spreadsheets can be a bit of a nightmare to juggle, and you just get your head around it, and then somebody shares a spreadsheet with you with a whole load more coding you have to try and understand. Now imagine you leave the company and somebody steps in and takes over. How are they going to understand what you've created? People have in the past done things that are obviously not particularly moral, such as putting white font in to hide numbers. They've hidden sheets. They've got passwords in there you can't identify, circular references, the old WITTB. What does it take to balance? That simply means that people are fudging in the numbers that ultimately mean that they're rainbow spreadsheets, which is a phrase that we try and remind people of, that ultimately the figures tie back. So I still have nightmares about rainbow spreadsheets, trying to get people to identify from different data sources, what matches off, what doesn't match off, summing items together. Excel was not invented in the 1980s for such a purpose. What we want to do in BlackLine is automate that process, which we do by bringing in feeds of data into BlackLine. We can bring in any readable data source into BlackLine. And alongside that, we also take a feed from the ERP system. Now that might be at the general ledger level, might be the sub-ledger level. We can work with any ERP currently on the market and numerous ERPs at the same time. My old company, we had 4 ERP systems of various ages, some of which were creaking, some of which needed upgrading. But what we can do in BlackLine is bring those into the system using 3 different methods to connect, whether that's a simple SFTP, whether it's an API, or whether it's using a cloud connector. We'll bring the data in and actually enhance the data. The reason for doing that is ultimately it's going to align the data between your third party or external data sources and your ERP system more effectively if we have enhanced the data, if we've driven calculations and combined it in a way whereby that matching process can work more effectively. The matching process runs at 1 million transactions a minute. Now that's a powerful system that can identify one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many matching scenarios. And we've got customers such as large pizza providers, such as large technology giants, such as online marketplaces who are actually using matching to identify millions of transactions on a daily basis, because ultimately that explains through the matching process the reported balance on the face of the rec. So all of this is automated. You haven't had to do anything yet. BlackLine brings the data in, it runs the matching, it even creates the rec for you and compares it against the balance that's reported in your underlying ERP system. Now, if it identifies something needs adjusting, we can run a journal entry from BlackLine into the underlying ERP system. It also takes care of ad hoc journal entries, reoccurring journal entries, your monthly, quarterly, annual journals. It's all about setting up the rules so that it flows into the underlying ERP system. Alongside that, there's reporting to show you where you've got to show you, who's doing what and when that's going to happen. And ultimately what it does is it's a single online cloud-based platform to manage that entire process, to bring in the data sources and apply it to the brain within the heart of BlackLine. BlackLine then applies rules and business logic to really get the most out of your data, and ultimately the output will be information. And that's key, changing it from data to useful information on which management can make decisions. Now, within the system itself, these rules and business logic will actually drive automation. We typically see anywhere between 40 to 85% automation straight out of the box, literally from day one. In my old company, we managed to achieve 80%, so towards the top end from day one. And then that freed up time for us to focus on the recs that remained, but also to focus on those strategic initiatives. So as you can see here, we take a best practice template approach. We can drive analysis and reporting as the business is happening to make it more relevant an approach. And the workflow gets allocated automatically to those in the finance function. So a great way of letting the system do a lot of the work in the background to drive automatic account reconciliation, to deal with those transaction matches on the face of your reconciliation. So you can see what does match, what doesn't match, what needs to be fixed by using a journal entry from BlackLine. We can actually manage all of your tasks, who's doing what and when, bring teams of people together, allow you to upload your Excel-based period end close checklists, so you can see them in BlackLine in a matter of seconds, really fast, really efficient to do. And that highlights to you where there are variances. How did the numbers move period on period, quarter on quarter, actual versus budget versus forecast, etc. And again, supported by the reporting tool. So these are the key products in the BlackLine suite, which will ensure you are compliant. Do you need to be compliant with SOX? Do you need to be compliant with IFRS statements like IFRS 17, IFRS 16, 12, etc.? Do you just want to upload the provided by client list from your auditors and see where you're going to pass the audit and where you're not going to? BlackLine will update these items from the other products in the suite. And this is why we chose to be cloud-based, because all of these products work together. And by having it in the cloud, you get more than some of the individual parts, so that we can more effectively manage your close process. I think this is a very good representation of what things look like at the moment. That at the moment, it just seems to be a reoccurring nightmare of managing your period end close, where you've got late nights, you can see light at the end of the tunnel. You actually might be able to go home on time for a few days in between period end before the nightmare starts again. What we believe at BlackLine through automation is that actually we can squash what we call the camel's hump. We can actually make it a more manageable process by spreading the work across the course of the month, by greatly reducing the workload through automation at the period end, allowing you to not only close faster, but actually spread the work more effectively throughout the month so that you can explain the numbers before you close off your period end. So that shorter close is really going to help you have a more balanced distribution of the work to be able to go home on time considerably earlier and for many more days in the month and actually prepare for the upcoming period end close. And again, I am an example of that. We were able to close off 2 days earlier at the period end. And for a 3-month-long project, that was an exceptionally good result. It did just mean we had more real-time access to the figures, and we were able to spend a lot more time focusing on explaining the numbers rather than preparing it. Having the odd longer lunch, it's not for me to suggest that's what you do with your time, but you can decide and make your strategic focus much more beneficial. Final slide, and then what I will do is very briefly just jump into the software so you can see what it looks like for a couple of minutes. Then I'll be handing over to my customer and friend Jabu, so she can run through her experience of what it was like to work with BlackLine on the project. But ultimately, what we want to do for you is provide you with focus, so you have a reporting dashboard that shows you what everything looks like. You've got the control, you can identify risks, and you can actually analyze items as and when the underlying business is happening. So we do have a number of customers, and I'll share a couple of examples. You may have heard of Coca-Cola. It's one that I'm a very regular customer of, and the next one I'm an even more regular customer of. But even for a company as big as Coca-Cola, we were able to substantially reduce their manual processes while saving them a lot of money at the same time. Very, very strong return on investment. And what this is going to do is, of course, enable you to focus on the items that remain, get the work done, and close that bit sooner. Now, I mentioned we've got a couple of pizza providers around the world. This is my favorite, my local Dominos, I'm on first name terms with, and we handle 40 million transactions for Dominos. Literally, what they can do is they can actually go in there and see, who ordered a pizza, has it been paid for? They can actually match at that transactional level. So an incredibly powerful system for being able to go in and make sure that they've got a really tight grip on all the work that's being done, and that tight grip is going to enable them to actually focus on explaining the general movements in the numbers. Right, without further ado, what I'm going to do is jump very quickly into the software, give you the highest level overview of what it could look like if you were a BlackLine user. So when I log into my cloud-based system, which is great for those of us who are having to work remotely, simply access through the internet or via your BlackLine application on your mobile phone. You can log into the system and you're given a real-time update showing me where I've got to with my recs, with the tasks allocated to me for the period end, to explain my variance. And for those of you who are in a group of companies, being able to deal with items across the intercompany scenario. And alongside that, I can also see my reporting dashboards. These dashboards are great because, being able to actually look at a picture and try and understand the kind of general level of travel, the direction of where things are going, is far easier. And if I see something that alerts me, I can click on the items and it brings up the transactions at the bottom of the screen. So great top-down analysis enabled through the platform itself. And we can see up here how I've got access to all of those different products within BlackLine at the touch of a button. So if I want to look at reconciliations, I want to manage my top side adjustments using our consolidation integrity tool. I want to manage the journal entries I've got or see which items match off in my period end close, alongside being able to run reports, to be able to see what tasks are allocated to me and ultimately understand any variances which have been captured. All of that will be at my fingertips. So it's a great way of aligning all the work and seeing who's doing what, see which, for instance, which reconciliations have been allocated to me. As you can see, we've got filtering up here. Users can drive different views if they wanted to focus on specific areas within the product itself. It just makes the process far more efficient. BlackLine sets these reconciliations up and uploads the very latest general ledger balance from your underlying ERP system. So it makes the process considerably easier to handle in terms of who's doing what work and when it needs to be done within BlackLine. We'll take all of your tasks, upload them into the system, and it makes it much more effective for teams of people to work together, where we make it very clear what due dates are going to be, working day, and even time of day. So you can more effectively analyze the work that needs to be done. And by building out parent-child relationships, it shows you the workflow that's needing to be completed. So I'm going to now step back. Jabu will be stepping in a second. She's a customer of ours, and she's got a very interesting story to share with you, along with a few great slides that I hope kind of capture the essence of the project that she's been running for MultiChoice.
It's always so great to hear about implementations in practice and real world examples. Although I was also quite excited about CocaCola and Dominos. Let's just have a quick look at the polls. This is where people are in their process automation journey. So you should all be able to see that we've got quite a few people who say we've not even started or considered it yet, 33%. 22 on it's currently under consideration. 33 we're in the process of implementing it, nearly there, and 11% say we've arrived and loving it. So Josh, does that look a little bit like what you would have expected?
I have to say exactly that. For those who are considering it at this stage, that's really good to hear, because it's going to free up time. It's going to make the strategic focus more relevant for you, but also it's going to kind of hopefully help you fall back in love with accounting again. Maybe that's quite a strong statement, falling in love with accounting, but we chose to be accountants. No one was holding a gun to our heads, but we didn't choose to spend our life doing Excel spreadsheets. So that's really good to hear. If you're considering it, if you're in the process of implementing it, this is exciting time, because ultimately, you're going to get involved in something a little bit different. It's going to help you become that level above. It's there to make you a strategic accountant. And for those who arrived and loving it, that's wonderful news. It's a journey. No one is expected to roll out the whole suite in one go. Get some early wins. And what is that going to do? It's going to free up your time to focus on other areas, so it becomes a journey. So I'm not surprised to hear it. Those of you who have arrived or are going through it, it's going to give you competitive advantage in the marketplace as well. So good news, no massive surprises, but I'm glad that people have responded to the poll.
Okay, and let's have a look at F&A priorities. So we've got the priorities are to recruit and retain top talent, 5%, financial integrity, 24%, internal controls and compliance, 33%, lean accounting didn't hit a sweet spot, and process efficiency, 38%. So it's that process efficiency that's really the gold standard, although the others do certainly come up a close second and third. And Josh, again,
that's the mindset of accountants, isn't it? Kind of inherently, we are kind of process driven. We want to be efficient in the processes. We've got too much work to do. If we can be efficient and get it done first time, every time, and get it done efficiently and effectively, not only does it make us look good, but we can either go home on time or crack on and actually get through the work. So I'm not surprised. As we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation in a slide, we spoke about the controls and compliance and how that's only going in one direction. So that's very good to hear. A third of people agreed with that. And the financial integrity piece, that's ultimately why we do what we're doing. We need to make sure that there is that integrity there. And I would agree with the 1 in 20 view that said it was about recruiting and retaining top talent. That's exactly what it's all about for many people. That people don't find doing Excel spreadsheets and doing the same thing month on month particularly interesting. And what happens if somebody leaves? You've got that plan already documented in BlackLine. It's just a case of switching over the user. So it's a good thing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Josh. And it's always good to hear from the audience to get a sense of who's in the room and where they're at.
Exactly.
It's now over to Jabu, and like I said, it's really exciting to hear your story, what you've described as a nightmare, and how you untangled that. So we're looking forward to hearing about your journey, and I can see people are keen for it. They're talking in the chat. So Josh and I will pop off video, and we will hand over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Georgina. Good morning to everyone on the line today. Thank you for joining us. I'll touch base on how, we were impacted by COVID, but the basis of my presentation will obviously be more around our digital transformation journey and how BlackLine has been a partner in transforming the way we perform recons and the way we track our month-end close cycle, right? We got hit with COVID lockdown restrictions last year, right before our year-end reporting period, right? And for the first time in the history of year-end close within the group, year-end had to be performed remotely, right? And I think fortunately for us, we had already kicked off our digital transformation journey. So completing this year-end process remotely wasn't as challenging as, one would have anticipated it to be. So, as a finance department, we are going through a transformation journey to ensure that, we are consistently and constantly reporting on accurate, valid, and complete data for the group. Our digital transformation journey kicked off in 2018 when, the finance shared services was created to improve the governance and controls across the finance processes in the SA group and to ensure a standardized approach across the various business units within our SA group of entities, right? So as one could imagine, the way in which one business unit was doing things was completely different to the next. And as a shared services center, we then needed to look at ways to standardize these processes to enable, the drive for efficiencies and just ease of KPI reporting. And one of our biggest challenges was around the balance sheet recon process. The overall, recon process was really inefficient and outdated. It was very manual and lacked appropriate quality checks, which affected our ability to complete important financial processes accurately and on time. Recons were being completed on Excel spreadsheets, and templates were being saved all over the show, which was really the reporting nightmare, as there was lack of visibility, in the completion and the completeness of recons on a monthly basis. In some of our areas, people were still literally printing out recons for management to physically sign off. Like in 2020, it was really, in 2019, it was really shocking that that was still happening. And there was really no way for us to enforce recon due dates, as there were way too many recons to manually go through to check what has been completed on time and what hasn't been. It was also difficult for us to track if recons were actually being reviewed, right? So the quality of our recons was a bit shaky and made internal audits and external audits a real pain. So we then went out to market, right, to find a solution that would enable us to centrally manage the recon process and solve for all the aforementioned problems, right? Our desired solution, was a centralized tool which would enable real-time reporting on all things balance sheet related, where we could easily track recons which were completed on time, where we could easily track which recons had unreconciling items, what is the value of those unreconciling items, the volumes, and, how old are these items, and, most importantly, the financial impacts of these items, is it a balance sheet impact, or is it, an income statement impact, which we then, probably need to look closer into. Okay, we needed something that would really just make this recon process more efficient and effective and would give us confidence in the accuracy of our numbers. So that's when we then partnered with BlackLine to implement a solution that would resolve these issues. So let's talk about how BlackLine helped us, right? So all our recons are currently now centralized in the BlackLine module, as Josh has displayed now. So there is one version of the truth across the group, and we do not have version control struggles where, I picked up the recon from that folder, but that is not the latest one, it was in this folder, right? So you don't have those struggles anymore. And, previously we had a risk, right, that outdated balances would be used to complete recons, and this risk was mitigated with the implementation, right? As we have an automated integration between BlackLine and our ERP system, which is SAP, and we can now really trust that the balance we are reconciling is the latest one, right? This integration has also eliminated a lot of the manual activities, such as just extracting a TV balance and GL dumps just to get the data into a reconcilable format. What we also didn't want, right, is our people performing repetitive, non-value adding tasks and activities, right? So we did not expect our teams to form each and every single Recon account each and every month, right? And BlackLine has been really accommodating in this respect because, you know, it allows for auto certification rules to be built. Just to give an example of some of these rules, you know, when a Recon doesn't have a movement, you can set it up to say, okay, I've reconciled it last month. I was happy with the balance. Please also reconcile it if the balance doesn't change, right? Some of your clearing accounts or any of your zero balance suspense accounts, you set a threshold to say, you know, if this account is sitting at 100 Rand, let's not waste my accountant's time. Auto certify that Recon, it's immaterial. It will not make a difference because it is a clearing account. It's probably just, you know, a bit of a mismatch issue, right? Of 100 Rand. Nobody's dying from that, right? And, you know, another thing you could make use of is, you know, Recon frequencies for certain Recon types. As an example, right, we only reconcile some of our equity accounts twice a year. So you don't need accountants looking at, you know, equity accounts each and every month. Those are more important for you, you know, twice a year or depending on what your policy is as a company. Whereas, you know, bank recons, we do monthly, right? Because those are more important and there's a lot more movement in those accounts, right? Most of our clearing accounts are auto reconciled. You know, this really just allows for the teams to really focus their time dealing with recons that, you know, that need more attention, that have items that need to be cleared and so forth. In terms of segregation of duties, right, the BlackLine workflow follows a linear progression. So you prepare Recon, approve, then review, right? This ensures appropriate level of review and in an appropriate order according to due dates. But then BlackLine also, you know, although a user may have multiple roles, they cannot be more than one role of these 3 roles assigned to one single account. So BlackLine manages the segregation of duties for you. It also does date and time stamps and names, date, time and name stamps. So then it makes audits, you know, a real breeze because, you know, auditors will be able to see that, you know, this particular recon was prepared by Jabu and it was reviewed by Josh, right, with proper timestamps. To drive the quality of our reconciliations, what we did is we created an accounting hub team. And this team is responsible for reviewing of recons over and above the approver role, right? BlackLine allows for these reviews to be facilitated on the software through an evaluation tool. So our accounting team, what our accounting hub team would do is sample select recons on a monthly basis, ensuring that all recons are covered throughout the year. They would then give each recon a rating out of 100. And then on a monthly basis, what we would then do is have sessions to address all the poorly scored recons so that we can improve those. This has really helped us so much in improving the quality of our recons and ensure that we can really trust in our balances, okay? This team is also tasked with tracking unreconciled items and ensuring that these are addressed as soon as possible, right? And any age items are then flagged to the relevant heads of finance for actioning. And lastly, you know, as part of our package with BlackLine, we also got a license to their task module. This module came in really handy for us when we went into COVID lockdown restriction, where we were forced, right, to perform year-end remotely for the first time. How this helped is that managers were able to easily track the progress of year-end close activities easily, right? Allowing for a more smoother audit process and a quicker turnaround time in the, you know, the processing of Fs and, you know, overall reduced audit timelines for us, audit overruns for us. This module has also really assisted us in tracking of our month-end close activities, which has enabled us to identify reasons for lengthy month-end close cycle times and thus reduced our overall month-end cycle time. Currently, it has been reduced by a day. We are looking at reducing it by another day in the current year. And hopefully by 2023, we will be doing month-end in 2 days. And, you know, in terms of next steps, as an ex-accountant myself, I think that accountants working for big companies such as MultiChoice end up becoming glorified data capturers, constantly chasing deadlines and not having enough time to actually produce quality work through thorough reviews and analysis, right? And with the implementation and the improvement of some of these technological enablers, this narrative can be changed. And a lot of the mundane, repetitive tasks can be automated so that accountants can really start looking at the numbers and adding value to the business. So as a group, we are constantly trying to find more ways of automating processes to move the role of an accountant from a capturing one to more of a review and an analysis one, which would then assist business with, more real-time decision making. We are constantly looking for opportunities to replace outdated manual processes with efficient and transparent best practice processes. And now that we have become brilliant at basics, we now need to ensure that, we have the best in-suit tech enablers in place. And I think this is going to be a tough decision for most CFOs to make, as there is way too many options in the market right now. So finding the right combination for your environment is going to be very crucial in ensuring that you are future fit. So in terms of our journey, I think Gugu in the chat asked where we are. So I think in terms of automation and that we are well in our way. And, one of the things we picked up is that, our SAP system is currently outdated. So what we are looking at doing in the upcoming year is also, to get our SAP platform upgraded to S/4HANA. And once our global template has been updated, we are looking at scaling the services we are currently providing in our SA finance department to the rest of our global footprint, which sits in the rest of Africa and the Czech Republic and in the Netherlands. And yeah, just in closing, it has become such a norm that we, or accountants rather, will work late hours over month-end close and reporting periods. And I think, this narrative can really be changed with the right use of technology, resulting in, both customer and agent satisfaction. And like Josh alluded, longer lunch breaks, hopefully. That is it for me. Over to you, Georgina.
Thanks, Jabu. That was a great presentation. Josh, I'd also like to invite you back on camera so that we can have a bit of a chat. I've got some questions, and the audience is also welcome. Welcome to pop any questions in the chat. I've seen a couple of people raising their hand using the Zoom functionality. Please, if you do have a question, if that's what you're raising your hand about, please can you pop it in the chat and we will definitely get to it. So I think that the first thing that I'd like to know is this, this sounds like a fantastic evolution of any finance department. But Josh, can you tell us how much training it typically takes to get people to go from Excel to this new and different and far more efficient system?
Sure, yeah, it's a very good question, because if you're going to move towards this kind of system, you want to know that it's something that it's not going to take a long time to ramp you up to where you need to get to. And it's been built by accountants, not by IT as the main driver. So actually, it's kind of logically done. It's very minimal training. The training is all built into the software as well, so it's something that can be done during the implementation process. So from day one of go live of using it, you're 100% up to speed. We've got a really active community as well, with over, as I mentioned, with over 300,000 users globally. Then there are people out there to support you who are actually existing customers. You've got BlackLine employees, and we work with a number of partners. There's a lot of training material, and you can have actually kind of interactive conversations with the people to get more out of the software. So the quick answer is it's very easy to get up and running. And the kind of slightly longer answer is there's lots of training in there, which includes qualified accountants. It includes, I'm not sure what you call it in South Africa, whether it's CPD or CPE, your annual training requirements. There's a lot of that built in, and that costs a fortune. So if you can get it for free through BlackLine, that's a great result.
And Jabu, what was your experience with your team of kind of switching them over to this way of thinking and doing?
Yeah, I mean, like Josh alluded, that they have this community within BlackLine. I think that helped us a lot, right? So obviously, initial change management had to be, kicked off by us internally in terms of getting the team moved away from, even like especially, the hardest people were the paper people, right? It's hard to tell people stop printing, and you can stay here. It's okay. We'll just give you dates and timestamps. So obviously that initial change management, we had it. But I mean, in terms of like ongoing questions and updates, the teams really, can go through this community where they can pick up their own, whatever specific, need you have or question you have, the community would have answers to that because they have, product and, training documentation saved in there. And there's like chat options where you get to chat with the rest of the community. And I think, BlackLine, that's, one of my favorite things about them is that they're really good at change management. Like we saw now, Josh showed this new UI. It's actually a new user interface, right? And I was really stressed out to say, my users are going to get into a panic when they log in one day and then it's totally different. But BlackLine was quite smart in that, a month or so before it was launched, they put up a little video. So every time you log on to BlackLine, you'd see this little video of what is coming and what it's going to look like, right? And that helped me a lot with change management. And I mean, this happened like last month, and to date, I've only had like 3 people query out of 100 users on this new user face. So I think they're great in managing, change in the environment and sort of helping you walk through it with your teams.
Okay, fantastic. So Josh, in your experience across multiple clients, so Jabu indicated that paper was one of the harder things to overcome. But I mean, I imagine that moving away from Excel is also a pretty tough call. You can pry my Excel from my cold dead hands is probably what you encounter a lot of the time. So generally, how do you feel? How do you help people to make this mindset shift? Or how hard is it to get people to make this mindset shift?
I know what you mean. It can be very difficult. Obviously, if you spend in some of our cases, a decade or two using Excel every day, then to get them to shift to BlackLine's approach, it's just a change in mindset. But to kind of help that, to smooth the process, there are tools in BlackLine where you can just take what you've got in Excel and actually see it on the screen in BlackLine. So, it's got all the functions and features that you're used to in Excel, just inside BlackLine. So it captures what you're doing in there and uses it within BlackLine in the normal way. It's very easy to import data, calculations, everything you've done historically in your Excel spreadsheet and bring it into BlackLine. But actually, because BlackLine's so easy to use, the move over it's not as bad as you might fear. So definitely one that I can kind of at the right time can show you how that might work, but certainly not something to be fearful of. And if you want to run it in parallel for a couple of months and keep your Excel in the background, then absolutely fine. If you want to attach your Excel documents within BlackLine just as a kind of historic record, that can also be done as well. So however you feel most comfortable doing it is what we'll go with.
And I mean, you talk about historical documents, but I know how some people work when they get something new, is that they do what they always used to do and then try and copy and paste it into the new system. Is that doable? Do people work like that, or
yeah?
Or
I mean,
is it
if that's what people want, we're happy to do that. I mean, we try and have the conversation during implementation, during the kind of earlier stages to actually say, well, this is an opportunity to kind of redesign the process. The whole thing with BlackLine is it drives that efficiency. We can make suggestions, we can tell you what worked with other customers, and you can ultimately decide. You've got the control over this process. Certainly, I personally found that stepping away from Excel over a number of months, during implementation and post go live, taking kind of pigeon steps was just the way that we felt comfortable doing it. Other people have just made a complete kind of chop, on day one of go live, BlackLine only and nothing, or a hybrid. It's whatever works best for you. We will go with, but we're keen to always kind of share the stories, as Jabu's kindly done today, because using other people's experience is generally how we see people get to those top levels of automation. And in the longer term, we've got customers who have got up to kind of 99.9% accurate matching on the data. They've got into the high 90s when it comes to kind of automatic journals, automatic reconciliation, and all that low value add, boring, repetitive work just goes away, so you can actually be more strategic.
Okay, fantastic. And then I've got another question, and it sort of echoes where Gugu's coming from, and I think we're seeing quite a bit of interest in the chat, which is great. So what do you integrate with? Which ERP systems out there can you can you talk to?
Any system that has a readable output. So every ERP system on the market we can connect with and have, I think there was something like 77 different ERP vendors who we've connected with over the years, and all of the instances of those ERPs. So there are obviously going to be some easy wins like SAP, like Oracle, Sage, Sun, those kind of ones that we've got hundreds, thousands of customers we've connected with who use those platforms. Where customers who have got more than one, then that's an easy one as well. I'm an ex-SAP, Sage and Sun user. I used Oracle in previous companies, and we managed to connect with all of those. So you get one view of what it all looks like in one place. It's almost like having an umbrella across the top, having all the figures combined together. So from the group-wide perspective, I know what it all looks like, and I can see where the data is coming from. We've got one customer on mainland Europe who has 120 ERP systems, and they were trying to do all of this combined using Excel spreadsheets. So you can imagine what a challenge that would be for them to not only maintain that spreadsheet, but every time that there is someone posts a journal, it all needs rerunning. Was it captured? Checking. This is all time consuming and fraught with risk and problems. So just let BlackLine do all of that for you.
And then Sergio is asking, Jabu, you have mentioned in your presentation that you went out to market searching for a solution to your challenges. What sold you to choose BlackLine compared with other solutions in the market?
Sure, they were next level. Hey, so in terms of integration, that was the biggest win for me, where they had a connector already for SAP, right, which was our ERP system. And I think the date stamps, the ease of doing recons, and again, like I mentioned earlier, the change management that they sort of manage for you, right? So you're not tasked with, as a person who's implementing the solution, you're not tasked with constantly having to deal with user issues. The system does that for you, right? And I think from an audit point, right, big one is the evaluation tool, where before our recons were being done, but some managers weren't reviewing recons, and this poor accountant is going on a tangent, whereas this could be resolved on a monthly review. So having that evaluation sort of solution come through, and that being managed on the system helped us a lot. So I think that's some of the reasons why we went BlackLine versus the other solutions that we saw.
And how long did it take to implement, Jabu?
For us, so it's been a gradual implementation, right? So to implement the accounts module, it took us about 3 months, and we started off with about 30 of our entities. I think to date we have about 45. Yeah, so I mean, we keep rolling out some new things. So the task manager, that was a bit quicker because it's literally just getting a list of tasks you need done and then uploading them into BlackLine. So that took us about a month, and that was like literally before. It's almost like we knew we were gonna go into lockdown, right? Like literally before lockdown, we started using that to just manage our month-end close cycle, right? And we just wanted to see, why are we closing so late? Because I mean, currently it used to take us about 6 days. We're on 5 now, and we're looking to move on to 4 days to close out the month-end, right? So why was it taking us, so long? And that was, the drive. But thank God we were ready when lockdown came. Then we could use that, even for our audit, our CAS files, yeah.
And Josh, could you say if that's I mean, I'm aware that it's a how long is a piece of string question, but in terms of your other customers, or more broadly, how long does an implementation usually take?
Depends which of the products you go for. So yeah, I'd say anywhere from kind of 6 to 12 weeks for the reconciliations and tasks together. It takes a bit longer to do the journals because it's creating them in BlackLine, and it's checking the rules that you hold in your ERP system. So there's that two-way flow of data. So that's anywhere between 3 and 6 months. The variances, again, that's exceptionally quick. Matching depends on how many scenarios you've got, but yeah, again, anywhere between kind of 2 and 6 months. So that gradual approach of starting with the easy wins and freeing up time so you can actually think about the next stage and what's going in tends to work for most people. And really, when you've got the foundation products in, you set up who are going to be the users, what does the reporting look like, you set up your period ends, all of that stuff is done and doesn't need to be repeated. So it's easy to manage that on an ongoing basis. And that becomes the central focus for accountants. They're actually looking at the rules that BlackLine is running rather than actually doing the work. So, you know, it highlights to you where something doesn't meet those rules. And I used to be the system administrator at my previous company, and I probably spent about an hour a month setting up the upcoming period end. So it's very, very light touch indeed.
Great, thank you. And then I've got another question for you, which was that the premise of this webinar was a never normal world. And so in what way does BlackLine or a solution like BlackLine support the agility to deal with this never normal world? So your lovely graphs of flattening the curve of the reporting cycle. How does it deal with the kind of rapid pace of change that is throwing variables at us all the time?
I mean, if I look at our own scenario, I say here at BlackLine, it's fairly obviously a fake background. I'm not in our lovely Los Angeles offices, sadly, right now. But we used our own software to close, and we did that fully remotely with no warning when COVID kicked in, and it was still done in 3 days. And it was the first time that they hadn't had somebody in the office to manage that process. And it's the same with our customers. You know, it means that there isn't that delay, there isn't that bottleneck, the break in service. It's actually preparing for what's going to happen in the future. I mean, please let there never be, you know, another COVID or another lockdown. I mean, my goodness me, it's been tough on people, hey? But what we want is to prep people so that they can, you know, approve recs and journals and tasks on their mobile phone if they happen to be, I don't know, sat in an airport lounge or, you know, waiting for a game of golf to kick off. Whatever the scenario, that can be done. And by being the enabler, you know, we believe we're preparing people for that. If people do leave the business, then it's easy to go in using that system administrator role that I said I used to be in charge of. You can go in there and you can allocate everybody's work to the person who's going to come into the company or spread it across the team. It's actually having a plan in place up front so that when the worst happens, then you're already prepared for it. You can run scenarios in the non-live environment in BlackLine called our sandbox environment to see what would happen under certain scenarios. You've got the visibility about all of the settings and the controls that are in there. You know, it just allows for all of that, and it's something that's just almost impossible in tools like Excel and others.
Okay, fantastic. And then I've got one more question for you, Jabu, and then I think we're going to wrap it up. So I was thinking that you've gone from this accounting nightmare to living the dream, which is this promise of modern accounting that you're freed to do value-added tasks rather than mundane accounting activities. So given that you really have implemented a solution and achieved these kind of wins, is your team genuinely starting to do these value-added tasks, and what are some of the what is some of the value that you've started to add as a result?
Oh yes, definitely. Oh, my connection is unstable. Sorry, can you guys hear me properly?
All good.
Okay. Yeah, the team, I mean, like I said, one of the things we see now, quickest wins was the overruns, right? Those used to be really large. We've seen a reduction in that. So, I mean, it's clear that the team, you know, is focusing more time on producing quality work as opposed to just chasing a deadline. So there's more time now for the team to actually review whatever work they have done. So they really, you know, starting to add value as opposed to, you know, doing the same recon with the same zero balance and checking it and pulling a TB. That's not adding value to anyone. So we've seen some of that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you to BlackLine for bringing this webinar together. Thank you, Jabu, for sharing your story. It really is inspirational to see how solutions and good people can support this change and this living the dream. Josh, thank you for your insights and your expertise. Before I head into our closing slide, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
All good. It was just great to present. Wish I could have come and done it in person. I'm very jealous of you all down in South Africa.
Yeah, well, we'll come back next year. So I'm now trying to get to my second slide, but I always struggle at this point. Hang on a second, let me try one more time. There we go. No, it's still not. Wait. There we go. I've done it. So our next webinar coming up is Amazon Web Services presenting the risks and rewards of cloud migration. So you can join us for that on the 22nd of September. You can visit cfo.co.za/events to sign up for our events. And it would be great to see you there. Thanks once again to Josh and Jabu and BlackLine and MultiChoice for participating today.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.